Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be installing an M.2 NVMe drive into my Sony PlayStation 5 disc version. It is a launch version of the console, if that ever ends up mattering later on down the road for people trying to upgrade these systems. I'm doing this video for a couple reasons. Number one, I need one in my PS5. I really could use the extra storage. Right now I've got an external expansion drive, but that's a mechanical, and you can't run PS5 games off of it. So really I'm just using it for PS4 games and because it's quicker to transfer them over to the PS5 internal drive than it is to download a lot of these bigger games that are over 50 gigabytes all over again. Even on a pretty fast gigabit internet connection, the transferring this stuff over is just a lot quicker, honestly, and more consistent. So I'd like to have the NVMe drive inside of my PS5, but also I wanted to see how well this thing works, because this is actually out of spec for what they say the minimum requirements are for a PCIe NVMe Gen 4 drive, even though this is a Gen 4 drive. This is a 2 terabyte Gigabyte Aorus NVMe drive, which has a sequential read speed advertised up to 5,000 megabytes per second and write speed up to 4,400 megabytes per second. So it's still a Gen 4 drive, but it does not meet what Sony claims is the minimum requirement, which is 5,500 megabytes per second for read and write, I believe, for both. So this is a touch under spec, but this is still a blazing fast SSD that anyone would be happy to have in their system. They retail for $350. I've had it since X570 launched from AMD, and it's just really been sitting in a system doing absolutely nothing, and I've wanted to use it, but my main system doesn't take advantage of Gen 4, so it seemed like a bit of a waste, so I figured why not stick it inside the PS5 today, and we'll see if this thing works and see just how easy it is to install one in a PS5, which seems to be an absolute piss take, even though a lot of people think that it's really difficult when it's not. But first, today's video is brought to you by Prime Tech Mart, where you can grab software products like Windows 10 Pro licenses for extremely cheap. They've also got Office products and Vizio, as well as many more. You can save a lot of money on these keys with something like Windows 10 Pro. You can grab for just $21.43. It's a lifetime activation, so you don't ever need to renew it. You don't need to create an account with them in order to be able to buy it, and you get your key in just a matter of seconds. And if you hit up the links down in the description below and you want to save yourself an additional 20% off of any software over there, just go ahead and use my code JP20 at checkout, apply that, and it'll drop down 20%. So here on Windows 10 Pro for $21, we drop that down to $17, and you're fully activated for life. For more information, check out those links down in the description below along with the coupon code. Now, sadly, I do not have the heatsink, or I do have the heatsink, but I have no idea where it is. I've torn apart my office looking for this thing, and I could not find it. I know I left it in the box that it came in, because it's a fairly nice box. Actually, you can see it right here if I click on that. That's the box it came in. Fairly nice-looking box. I was like, oh, I'll hang on to this for this heatsink in case I need it later on down the road. The PC I had it in, the motherboard, had a heatsink built into the motherboard that could house up to 3 M.2 drives, so there was no reason for me to use the heatsink that came with it. But now, on the PS5, they advise using one, although I've seen it tested and working without using the heatsink, so I think it'll be fine. But I probably will, if I can't find it in the coming weeks, I may pick up one online. They do sell quite a few ones. You can buy this one from Be Quiet. It's pretty sleek, and even though it's going to be tucked inside the PS5 and I'll never see it, if you ever need one for a system, they're under $17 and looks pretty good. It'll fit into like literally any build. You can see it right there on a motherboard that does not have a built-in heatsink. And it looks pretty stylish, and hopefully it should do the job as well, as Be Quiet makes nice products. Also came across this behemoth. I think there might be some height clearance issues on the PS5 with this one, but this one also looks awesome. It's $22. Yeah, they're both available on Amazon. I'll drop links below. So as you can see, we've got the PS5 disc version right here. Other than the system, which will be the hardest part to get, you will need, of course, to have a M.2 NVMe drive, preferably PCIe Gen 4. As I said before, they recommend 5,500 read and write on it, so you really should be targeting that. I'm going a little bit under spec here today, and we're going to go ahead and remove this panel. So to do this on the disk version, you want to have the disk part facing up, so essentially the system is going to be upside down, and with that facing away from you and to the left, you're going to take your right hand and put it on the bottom right-hand side of the console, and you're going to lift up just a little bit. It really doesn't need that much. And then you're going to take your left hand and put it by where the disc is and where the disc would go, and just sort of slide it down away from the top. And I had a little bit trouble like just getting grip on it there for a second. It takes a little doing each time. I mean, it's very, very easy. I'll go ahead and do it again, actually. Go ahead and slide it back on. There you go. Clicks back on into place. Lift up on the bottom right side. Get some leverage with your fingers, and there you go. See, it popped right off that time. That time was a lot easier. Just got to get a feel for where you need to put the leverage with your left hand. But we'll go ahead and put that out of the way for right now. And there's the inside of our PS5. Fairly dust-free, honestly. Doesn't really need much of a cleaning, even though I've had it since late November. And you can see we've got our M.2 expansion slot right there. Go ahead and twist this around to get it a little bit better into frame, and I'll zoom in for you guys during this procedure. Okay, so it looks like we just need a standard Phillips head screwdriver, so I'll go ahead and take out the casing for where the M.2 drive goes, this enclosure sort of thing. The screw comes all the way out. Pretty long screw, actually. That's nice, so it's a little harder to lose. I always prefer to have a little bit of a longer screw, although I'm sure most people feel that way. Go ahead and drop that out of the way, and then we could see on the interior there, if we can get that in the light, I'll go ahead and bump up the ISO here because my light's facing the wrong direction like a noob. And there we go. So you can see here, we can see where all the different size M.2 drives can go, and you've also got a pre-installed screw here down at the end, which you'll pull out and then use to affix the drive into the M.2, which is pretty standard. Like you'd see this pretty much on a PC as well. Maybe if I stand it up like that, you guys get a pretty good angle. Let's go ahead and put it like that. There we go, and focus again. Doing all this pretty much in real time, just for people's benefit that maybe have never done this before or seen this before. I'll go ahead and size up my SSD and get it installed in there. Alright, the SSD is now basically installed, although it needs to go right there. So we'll have to go ahead and retrieve our M.2 screw from in here, and presumably the post as well will hopefully come with it. So yeah, it looks like the post came out with the screw. So yeah, it looks like the post came out with the screw there. I've got them both right there. It's two pieces, so that'll go through. Basically, it'll sit right underneath the M.2 drive, and then it'll screw right into it, and that'll hold it all into place. So yeah, there's a cutout around where the screw goes into, so I'll go ahead and I'll take this guy. Actually, I'll take out the M.2 for now. It'll probably give me a little bit better access to this part. I'll go ahead and seat that in there. So that's now inside. There we go. So now that's in there. That'll keep our screw in place and everything, and work as a standoff essentially for the M.2 drive. Go ahead and get this slotted back in, which is kind of hard for me to see at this angle. There we go. We've got that in, and then all we got to do is tighten our Phillips head screw down, up, and we lost it. PC Builder has trouble installing M.2 drive. Now, and go ahead and push that down, push our screw in, and then tighten it into place, and that should hold our M.2 drive flat. Emphasis on should. There we go. Goes down all the way. You don't really need to crank it down or anything. This is pretty much just holding it into place. And then we just have to put our cover back over the top, which is fairly straightforward. Right back in there. Grab our screw from before. Slide that bad boy home. Nice long screw. Goes deep in there, just the way she likes it. Tighten that back up. And there we go. Snug as a bug in a rug. And then all we have to do is close her up. Alright, with our drive installed, I've gone ahead and spun around the PS5 so that the disk drive is facing away from me again, because that's how my muscle memory is now working because that's how they recommend taking off the side panel. So I put it back in that position again with the disk drive facing up and away from me. We'll go ahead and put the cover back on, aiming a little bit lower than where it should be, and then pushing firmly upward until it clicks into place. Very, very simple. Our PS5 is now ready for gaming, although we will have to format the drive and stuff on the PS5 in just a moment, so we'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so downstairs now at my TV, this is where I usually keep my PS5. Sorry if you hear any background noise, the cleaning lady's upstairs running the vacuum. But let's go ahead, boot up the PS5, and see what the initial setup is like. All right, so immediately upon booting up, before sign in or anything else whatsoever, the PS5 just turned on, and this is the screen that I was met with. It says to use your M.2 SSD, you'll need to format it, which I expected. This drive actually has stuff on it from an old Windows install. When you format your M.2 SSD, all data on it will be deleted. If you want to continue using PS5 without formatting your M.2 SSD, try PS5 and then remove the M.2 SSD. Note that the saved data, screenshots, and video clips can't be saved in M.2 SSD storage. So, controller's on, so format M.2 SSD. I'll go ahead and run that now, and we'll see that actually is going really, really fast. I thought maybe that might take like a half hour or something for some reason. The read speed of M.2 SSD is as follows. If you experience problems while playing a game installed, that was all in real time, by the way. That was like pretty much instant. So that's nice. I could have seen something like that taking long. It says if you experience problems by gaming, try installing it in console storage. So the read speed is at 3878 megabytes per second. Now, as I said before, they recommend 5500, and this drive is advertised at 4500 megabytes per second, or up to read. And this one is just under 4 gigabytes, or 4000 megabytes. So, like I said, it's about 1500 megabytes, 1622 megabytes per second off of spec. So, not an insignificant amount, but still a very, very fast SSD. So, we're going to try it out. Now it says the M.2 SSD has been formatted. Change your games are installed, go to settings, storage, installation location, safe from SSD, turn off PS5 first. So there you go. It is now safely installed, and the PS5 is booting up. So the next step is I'll try booting up a game off of the regular storage, and then I'll move it over. Update for wireless controller, I'll skip that for now. You also do need to be on the latest firmware for your PS5 for this, which I installed the other day when it came out. I think it was Tuesday maybe, or Monday. I think it was Tuesday. So go ahead and I'll load up a game now, and I'll look at it afterwards to see how long it took to boot. I'm trying to think what I got installed here. What's a good one to load up that's actually stored on the console? Trying to think of something that doesn't have like an insane amount of like loading screens. I guess I'll just go with Horizon Zero Dawn. Let's see how long that takes to load up. All right, and play game now. Now this is already installed on my PS5 SSD, the one that came with the system. So that took that long to get to there. I'll have to put the times on the screen after the fact because I'm going to run it in my video editor and see how long things actually take. All right, so now that's how long it took to get to the main menu. So go ahead and click continue, and we'll see how long it takes to get into the game itself. Then we got the load bar at the bottom of the screen there, so I could even compare this sort of side by side. But that's pretty quick for this game. I know on like PC when it compiles shaders and stuff, initially it takes a really long time. But I had loaded this up about a week or so ago because it had gotten the 60 FPS patch on PS5. A little bit slower there at the end. But we should be getting in now. Okay. And there you go, now we're in. So it took that long to load in. I think it was maybe about, from start to finish, it was like maybe a minute or so total. But I'll have to put the times on the screen for you. So now I'll go ahead and skip ahead and transfer this over to the other drive, which hopefully should be fairly straightforward. Go ahead and close out Horizon Zero Dawn for that. But first we'll go over to settings and go to storage and see if we can move this drive over. So as you can see now, I've got console storage, which is about 667 gigabytes in total. Then I've got the 2 terabytes expandable, which is a full 2 terabytes, which is NAS. And then I've also got a 1.84 terabyte mechanical extended drive. So now I've got a total of roughly like 4.7 gigabytes, which is pretty good. 2 gigabytes, 2 terabytes, obviously, or 4.7 terabytes, I should say. So now 2 terabytes of that is just really expanded storage, which I probably won't really need anymore, but I'll keep it on there anyway. And then the console storage, the games and apps. So I want to go find Horizon Zero Dawn, which is select items to move, yes. So I want to move that to M.2 SSD storage, yes. You move your M.2 SSD storage, so that's pretty straightforward. And see, this is like a pretty big, okay, it started moving fast and then it slowed down. I thought because we were going from one SSD to the other that it would be like really, really blazing fast, and it is picking up again. There we go. This is in real time, folks. This could take under a minute to move a game that I think is about 50 gigabytes. That's really fast. This is all in real time right now. I am not skipping ahead at all. Like, this is me. Hello, I'm right here, just offside frame of the camera, recording this. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to move them between the two drives onto the console storage. So even if I want to play them on the console storage, like doing this with the mechanical drive still took like a good 20 minutes or so with some other game. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I didn't time it exactly, but it took some time. That definitely took less than a minute. I'll check the camera afterwards in editing and put it on the screen how long that took exactly to move that game over, but that was really, really fast. Let's go and check how big exactly that was. I think it was 48.19 gigabytes. So 48 gigabytes moved very, very fast over to the slower drive. So now the game is closed, as you saw before. So go ahead and boot that up now, and we'll see how long this one takes. All right. So right off the bat, I would say that seemed like it was a little bit faster. This is just one game, so I wouldn't take it as a conclusive test or anything. But it seemed to be running a little bit faster. There is the potential that could have been because some of the shaders were already compiled to the system's memory. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to move it back over to the internal storage drive, and then we'll load it one more time, and we will see how fast that is compared to the drive that I just installed. So yes, I'm going to move that back over to the main console storage. Go ahead and move that. It does seem to be taking longer moving it from the gigabyte drive I installed to the internal storage. That does seem to be taking a little bit longer. That could be down to a lower write speed, though, of the drive I installed. Definitely could be because of that. The other drive on there, that wrote the stuff over really, really fast, but that also required the drive to be able to read it quickly, too. So yeah, it definitely seems like the stock M.2 drive that Sony has inside the PS5 is winning in terms of write speed for sure. Definitely winning in terms of write speed, because when I moved it over to the gigabyte drive I installed, this was it felt like almost instantly, probably under 30 seconds. And this is it's going quick enough. I mean, it'll probably take I'd say maybe 2-3 minutes total, but it's still definitely better than a mechanical drive on the extended storage on USB. Still a hell of a lot better than that over USB 3, but noticeably slower, like probably, I don't know, 3 to 4 times slower, I would say, than the internal drive for writing, which is pretty nuts. I didn't expect to see that. All right, so now that's done. It definitely seemed to take longer than the before, and I'll put the numbers all up on screen for exactly how long everything took. And we'll go ahead and now boot Horizon Zero Dawn one more time off of the stock internal drive, and we'll see if the having stuff compiled to VRAM maybe makes it load up a little bit faster. And go ahead and hit continue. And yeah, that definitely seems to be going comparable or faster than the gigabyte drive now. But again, times will be on the screen for you, official loading times and stuff. So yeah, having stuff compiled into the VRAM made it load a little bit quicker initially. But yeah, now it seems to be, I would say, on par, but I'll put the times on the screen for how long each way took. May have been a little faster on the gigabyte drive still, actually. Okay, so here we are back in the studio. Apologies for all the different locations and lighting and different audio solutions I've been using here just to kind of throw this video together as I keep everything in different areas, and my main mic is attached to my desk. It goes without saying, it's a little bit complicated, but anyway, we got here in the end. So, long story short, installing the M.2 drive in the PS5 is insanely easy. Anyone can do it. If you have hands, or one hand even, well, it'd be easier with two, but if you have like a hand and like a nub, if you have like a nubbin, you'd probably be okay. Put it this way, Ricky Berwick could install an M.2 into the PS5. I'm pretty confident he could do that. I've seen what he can do with his disabilities that he has, and I'm pretty sure he could do it. Not trying to throw any shade here. Much respect to Ricky Berwick. He's a funny man, and I'm pretty sure he could install an M.2 into the PS5. Maybe an Xbox fanboy can't. Sorry about that. My ESPN Fantasy Football is going off. Let's go ahead and do not disturb that. But the end result here is that, yeah, it performed, pretty well to comparable. The only issue or slowdown where I saw was really in the write speed when transferring files over. It seemed to go a lot faster moving from the stock drive over to gigabyte drive versus gigabyte to the stock. So I've already put these numbers on the screen earlier on, but I'll go ahead and quickly go over them here with you. So On the stock SSD initially, the main menu of Horizon Zero Dawn took 22.01 seconds to load in. Going from the main menu and loading in, again, on that stock SSD took 29.06 seconds. So, fine, pretty quick. Then on the new SSD, the main menu loaded in 22.16. So that's within the margin of error. We're talking about 15/100ths of a second there. So within the margin of error. But the game loading from the main menu into the game was 26.29 seconds. So there we saved about 2.5 seconds. That's, measurable and repeatable. And it's not a huge amount, but, it loaded a little bit faster. If I were to chalk it up to anything, I would say it's the stock SSD is probably doing more than this drive, even though the stock SSD should be faster than the one I installed. It's also, running the operating system presumably in the background and taking care of other things. So yeah, it's got a little bit more going on. So if it loaded a little bit faster off the new SSD by 2.5 seconds, again, it's comparable or even faster in this case. So hey, that's fine. I'm not really going to lose any sleep over it if the drive is technically slower, but it loads games a little bit faster because it's not dealing with more stuff on the back end. And then as far as retesting the stock SSD on the system, which I wanted to redo in case certain stuff had been compiled to VRAM, particularly going from the main menu into the game on Horizon Zero Dawn. No surprises here that the main menu took exactly the same time as the new SSD on the stock SSD, or within the margin of error, but it ended up being the exact same, 22.16. And then the game loading in on that stock SSD on the second time around, after stuff had been compiled to shaders, all that stuff, shaders had been compiled to VRAM, it was 28.08. So slower than the initial test on the stock SSD, which makes sense, but faster, or did I say faster? Sort of faster than the initial test on the stock SSD, but slower still than the new SSD which I installed, which is technically a slower drive for read and write speeds, but it ended up loading up a little bit faster than the initial load, which again, I'm chalking it up to shaders being compiled and all that. And then the one other element there, which I mentioned during the video, if you watched throughout the entire thing, was the transfer speeds of the stock drive to the new M.2 drive. That took just 43.02 seconds, while moving it back over to run that second test on the stock drive from the M.2 to the stock drive took almost 3.5 minutes. So that is the biggest takeaway, the biggest chunk takeaway, biggest number here of data that we have here. So for loading times and all that stuff, doesn't really seem to be much of an issue. If you're going to install games on your secondary SSD, even if it's a little bit slower, again, this was a Gen 4 drive. I'm not sure about a Gen 3 drive, but this is a Gen 4 drive that was a little bit out of spec for what Sony recommends. So for loading games and everything, I'm not seeing any issues there. I don't think you're going to, I can't foresee really any issues there. The only time where I would say you're going to see a little bit of a slowdown is if, for some reason, you decide to take a game from your newly installed M.2 expansion drive and then move content over to the internal drive, which can take, about 3 to 4 times slower. It was a big chunk of time, 3.5 versus 43 seconds. So about 3 times longer than what the initial transfer speed was. So that's really the only area where I would expect to see a major slowdown. Moving stuff from a new drive over to the stock drive, which, may be few and far between, but it does take longer, but still a hell of a lot faster than a mechanical drive. I didn't try that out here in this, but I've done it in the past with other games, and it took a good chunk of time, like 15-20 minutes. It was a while, maybe even a half hour or so. It was considerably longer than 3.5 minutes, which is pretty good. Not as good as 43 seconds for sure, but pretty good. I think the main takeaway here at the end of this is that if you can grab yourself a Gen 4 drive and it's a little bit under spec for what the PS5 is asking for, you're going to be fine for loading games. But if you can get one that's up to spec and it's not going to break the bank, then I guess go for the faster drive. But if you already have one on hand, like I happen to have in this situation, go ahead and use it. The worst case scenario is you're getting more storage on your PS5 that's going to boot games and run games pretty much exactly the same, but it'll transfer them over a little bit slower if you need to go back to the stock drive. So that's the big takeaway here on this video. Glad to have the extra storage in there. I'm at 4.7 terabytes now on my PS5. That's mental. That is the most storage I have ever had in a console. I remember back on the Xbox 360, I was one of the only one of my friends that went out and bought the 250 gigabyte drive, so that I can install games directly onto the drive so that they would load faster, which at the time was like, oh my god, they're so much faster loading off of this shitty SSD hard drive because I have the games installed directly to it versus loading off the disk. And it was faster than loading off the disk. But it was still slow as shit by comparison to what we're seeing on the new consoles now and PCs. But yeah, I remember back at the time, that was like a real flex. Like I got the 250 gigabyte hard drive so I could actually install all my games, which at the time wasn't that hard because the games were DVD size. So we're talking about 7 to 8 gigabytes, maybe at most, on a game. Maybe if it was a 2-disc install, maybe like Mass Effect 2 or something, I think it was 2 discs. Maybe that would have taken up more space, but for the most part, you could just install the games on the drive and it wasn't an issue. But now these games are so much bigger, and we need ridiculously fast SSDs, so this expansion option becomes very, very expensive. As I showed you, the 2 terabyte drive I'm using, which is under spec, costs $350. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. And that's not Sony's fault. That's just how much Gen 4 NVMe drives cost. They're very, very expensive, which makes you think, how the hell are they making money on these systems? Because the SSDs have to be costing them a fortune. That's probably like the biggest loss leader, I would probably say, on these new consoles. And I'm guessing here, I'm throwing this in the dark. But the biggest loss leader, I would say, probably on the new consoles has to be the NVMe drives. They have to be losing money on that and then making it up like other places. So that's all I've got for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you ended up watching the whole thing all the way to the end, props to you. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up in over 20 minutes. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the comments, and I'll catch you next time. Ta-ra.